want to make sure we have enough time for a live demo of the transaction desk. So quickly, we're going to be covering today. This is going to be the transaction desk part 1, and this is on where you go to the GLVAR website and where you actually access the MLS. And there's also an option there for transaction desk. This is where you're going to find the vast majority of all the contracts and the things that you need to fill out from a compliance standpoint and what we should be adding to CSU. So I really appreciate you guys joining, and anybody that's watching the recording. I hope this is helpful because I know that this time I struggled and got lost on this a bit, and I want to make sure you have something that you can refer back to. And as it says, this is part 1. There's a lot to go over. So, but we're going to focus today on duties owed and buyer brokerage representative agreement, because when it comes to buyers, these are the forms that we need to think about the most. These are the ones that start the whole process to make sure we start from a compliance standpoint. So this is not just about paperwork. This is protecting us. It's for protecting you. And it simply makes sure that every transaction begins. Are you simply helping someone, or are you truly representing them? The difference is legal. It's ethical and professional. How you handle the first conversation determines whether you protect yourself or expose yourself. At the end of the day, your work means something, and you want to make sure that you're getting compensated for that work. This is not just about your commission, but also it's about shielding yourself, protecting yourself, and that you are very clear with our clients that we're moving forward with trust. It establishes the tone that we are professionals, that we're working together, and that we can actually explain the process that you've actually learned in school, that we have a fiduciary responsibility for our clients. And when you approach it in that way, you're going to get a lot less people questioning the fact that they're signing something. And really what they're truly doing is setting the expectation that you are the professional in this transaction. And I want to make a note that this paperwork used to be that we could have it signed at any point, or at the beginning before, you've already met with them, you're already showing them houses. But after October, it becomes part of the law. So this is something that legally we need to take very seriously too. And I know that it's hard sometimes to say, please sign this. And, to have that discussion can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's actually how we represent it. This is your shield. It sets the boundary that you're protecting them, and that you are holding yourself liable because of that representation. You're taking it serious. This is the start of showing that you're not just an agent, that you're a realtor, and there is professionalism in that. So this must be in place before you can show houses. This is saying that you are legally representing your client. This is the difference between helping someone and actually representing them. So today's focus, and I know everybody knows I love my live demos because I think that it brings us all together, and it's just not us talking about it, but we're workshopping it together. So by the end of this session, you should understand the duties owed, the BBRA, and we're going to go through a live demo of doing actually a client or fake client. So you can see step by step the walkthrough and how you can execute this in your workflow, but also understanding why and how you're filling it out, that you're not guessing what to put in other fields. And then after signing, this document needs to go in CSU. It's great that it's in transaction desk. It's wonderful that you're getting it signed, and that Sean, the broker, is representing the fact that he's signing as well. He's taking that responsibility. But we also need to put it in CSU because that's the start of your transaction. When you start marking these things off in CSU, that's on your list of things to do when you're doing a transaction. This is one of the first things that you need to upload, you need to document, and you need to see that actual check mark saying it's done. So I want you to think about transaction desk also means in tandem CSU. So duties owed is our ethical foundation. It shows that we're loyal to the client and the client's loyal to us. You have to hold confidentiality. You have to protect sensitive information. Now, it may just feel like you're just talking, that you may are talking to another agent or you're talking to a listing agent, but you also need to understand that when you got sworn in, that you're actually saying that you are going to hold that confidentiality, that we're not going to share things that should not be shared. And we need to be having those discussions with our client on what to share and what not to share, what they're feeling comfortable with. It's a disclosure that says that we will only share material facts and relevant information. We are showing obedience because the client's lawful instructions, even if we personally disagree, even if we say, well, they should share this about the transaction, it's not our choice. This is our client. This also says that we're going to take reasonable care. We're going to apply our full skill, knowledge, and diligence at every stage of the transaction. And that you're going to safeguard all funds, documents entrusted to you throughout the process. And I'm going to add to the accounting side of it again. I want us to be using the word fiduciary responsibility because it holds a standing. It holds a saying that we are watching their money like it is our own, that we take it very seriously. And what also helps knowing that phrase is later on in the transaction, when you're offering your guidance, like how to finance their loan or who to go through, I always suggest that they're going to get quotes from more than one lender. I say get a quote from at least 3. It's not going to affect their credit, and they're going to see the best deal. And when they think, oh my word, this is so much extra work to actually give all this documentation to 3 different lenders, when really it can just be an easy conversation. And if you go back and say that your fiduciary responsibility is to protect them, it actually makes it a lot easier for you actually to say, check with the lender that you're comfortable with, whether that's Wells Fargo or Chase. But you know what? Jennifer and maybe another home loan could possibly give you a better deal. And when they're comfortable with their bank, I totally get it. But if you actually use that phrase that you're responsible to making sure that you're getting the best deal, it puts the people at ease that you are coming from the professional side and your knowledge that it's best for them to get more than one quote. So when do you present duties owed? When you have the first real conversation. When you say, oh my word, I have a buyer, they want to work with me, that is when we need to get duties owed. You're going to put it through transaction desk. It will be docu-signed, and that's when your advice begins. Now, as I tell everybody, you should have your duties owed and BBRA in your car. You should have it handy. Can you get a wet signature? Absolutely. Can we do the rest of it in transaction desk? Absolutely. But if you keep it handy and someone sees you in public or someone says, I need a realtor, and you can start a conversation, right there, you're having a real conversation and you're prepared. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to get back to my office and I'm going to send you something electronically. You can say, you know what, we can fill out some of the paperwork right now. That way we can hit the ground running and I can start showing you homes immediately. But just remember that when it comes down to Sean, the broker signing, we're going to need to scan that document, put it through transaction desk, and make sure that he sees it electronically so he can sign. So before you're giving advice, you need to make sure that you have duties owed. Now, can you say this is a beautiful home that, if you're walking into an open house, you get a buyer? Absolutely. You can say this is a beautiful home, that I represent buyers if you're interested. But you really should have this signed before you recommend anything about the price range, whether the neighborhood's good, whether you're giving a strategy, because that is all required when you represent the client. You need to have this signed before showing homes. When you walk into a property together, this constitutes an act of representation. And again, I think this feels awkward to some people because they want to actually get a relationship with the client before asking them to sign something. When that happens, we need to word it. We need to make sure that we are saying that this is not locking them in. This is about saying, I'm representing you and I can negotiate, I can strategize, I can help from that standpoint. So if you feel awkward with this, we can script and role play. I also can give you a little blurb that I created when I send these to people saying what they mean. It's very short and sweet. And just skipping it because it's easy is not the way to represent yourself. Remember that the whole process is complicated. It can take time. And if we represent the fact that we understand that this can feel very overwhelming and we're here as the representative, and then that this starts the process, we can put them at ease because we are now part of their team. And absolutely, before writing offers, you will have to actually provide this as part of the offer. So going backwards with any client and saying, now I need a signature when you're so far down the road of writing an offer, that feels awkward. Because you're getting to the point where they already have a relationship with you, and now you're saying, well, let's formalize this relationship. So either way, you might feel awkward, but it's way easier to start them getting comfortable with signing, getting comfortable with DocuSign when you start the process this way. So early is the rule. There's no exceptions to this rule. We need to make sure the form exists to establish clarity before any professional service begins. We can't catch up. And if we do, we look very unprofessional. So if you're having difficulty having that conversation, please see me, see Erin, and we can walk you through that. Now, moving on to the BBRA. This gives us further clarity. It gives us a commitment and structure. This further defines our representation. Key here, it outlines our compensation. They're agreeing to the fact that you're putting a certain percentage on the the BBRA that you feel represents your work. So you're setting the clear terms of how you're compensated. Now, down the road, when you're doing the purchase agreement, and we're going to go over that in another training, there's going to be an area where you have to put in how much you're being compensated for. Now, if you can think back, if you don't have the BBRA signed, they have no idea at this point that you're actually seeking compensation. So when we get the BBRA way ahead of time, they already know that you're expecting compensation. So when the residential purchase agreement is created and you put your 3% or 2.5%, they already know about it. We're still moving forward and they're not going to sit there and question it. This also sets their expectations. There's going to be communication. There's going to be forms. And what's great about it, and maybe that's just because of me, the duties owed is 1 page. The BBRA is 2 pages. The RPA or the purchase agreement goes to like 4 or 5 pages, I think. So we're actually just baby stepping them through the process to the point when they're buying the home, if anybody saw that stack of papers, it's going to feel much more comfortable because we've walked them through an easy step of signing. And again, that establishes that we're a professional. We have forms, we have structure, and this is part of our integrity as a professional because we are a top agent and we're not just casually hearing that they want 2 beds and 2 baths. We are actually seeking to do the best thing for our client. This is what makes our relationship real and make sure that you actually see yourself as someone that is not just helping someone, that you're actually establishing a professional relationship that you need to be compensated for your time and effort. When to introduce the BBRA. Now, we do want to build connections. We don't want to freak them out. I like to get the BBRA and the duties owed way ahead of time. I actually put them together. I say that these are coming. This is going to clearly define everything we're doing. But if you feel uncomfortable, I would show up at the showing with it and then go through it step by step. And then if you're doing a consultation face to face, you should always have them ready. And as I tell everybody, learn to read them upside down. So you can point things out as they're reading them. And then frame it as if this is a mutual commitment. You're all in it, just like they're all in it. You're working together. So your system needs to be one line. We lead with value, then we add structure. The client who sees your expertise first will welcome the agreement as confirmation, not a condition. If they see you as a professional and you're showing up for them, this is not going to be a shock. They're going to know that you are putting all your effort towards what they're looking for. Common mistakes. You're waiting too long. You've already showed them homes. They are already interested. Now you're doing the RPA and you're going backwards. They have no idea at this point that you're even asking for permission or a structure at all. If you sound unsure, you hesitate. Like, is it okay? Is it all right that I'm sending this to you? So practice the language. It should sound really second nature. It should sound natural. And that's with any relationship. If you walk into a lawyer's office or a tax professional, you're going to be signing things because they're representing you. And nothing's different with an agent. Over explaining it. You don't need to defend it line by line. You present it, you highlight the key points, and you invite the questions. If they feel nervous, make sure that you're walking through it, that you're not afraid of any of the areas. Now, not uploading it or tracking it is another common mistake. A signed document that lives in your email is not tracked. A signed document that lives in transaction desk is not tracked. And then if you treat it as optional, and it's not just a standard, then your clients are going to not even see you as a professional. And by the way, tomorrow, they may see another real estate agent that says, hey, I need you to get it to sign, and they offer the duties owed in BBRA. Now they're signed with another agent, and you've already done work. So this is protecting yourself too. And be confident. If you're not confident in the forms, then let's get together, let's go through them, and we will do step by step of what each section is needed and why. But you want to own the process because clients want help. This is complicated. They hire us because they're not sure and they want to make sure that they're protected too. So if you own the process, they will follow your lead. So let's walk through this. So I'm going to hop over to the GLVAR website. Now, if you're not familiar with this, then this is basically where you're going to find the MLS. You're going to get this you're going to get this access once you get sworn in and you've gone through your training. And this is kind of where you feel like you live, the matrix, which is the MLS. And showing time, you can kind of access when you're seeing homes in the MLS, so you can do this separately as well. But this is where your forms are going to live. You're not going to be able to access the forms over in the MLS. You need to go out here and you need to go into the transaction desk. Now that's going to pull up a totally different tab. Okay, so as you can see here, I've done quite a few of these, but this will sit in your record and in all of the ones you've worked on, so you can go back and refer to them. And so over here, you'll see all the transactions and the different names. You'll see that I actually name these pretty specifically, so I know that it's easy to go back and look at what I have done. Then when you click on transactions, it will actually take you to the specific forms that you've done so far. But let's back up, because that's a whole nother training. And so you have a buyer, you want to start the process of duties owed and the BBRA. So you're first going to create a transaction. Now here is not the name of the client. This is what you want to name the transaction. Now, typically, I'm going to name it the client or clients. So, but I also typically will name it something that's important. I may put renter. I may put something that is going to draw my attention to it. So in most cases, I'll put just the person's name, or if it's more than one person, I'll put it here. Again, it doesn't have to be the exact name of the client. It just needs to remind you of what the transaction is about. So the type here, go back. Okay. I'm just going to create another one because that was confusing. So the type is going to be the type of transaction. So most of the time, you're not going to be doing the commercial side. You could be doing a condo, a lease, a condo sale. If it's a buyer, it's going to be residential sale. Now, this is kind of confusing because residential sale feels like you're selling the side. But if you are with the seller, it's going to be residential listing. So think of it that you're helping the sale of a residential property. So in this example, we're going to choose residential sale. Import data here, see, it's optional. I never use this, but you could feasibly import data from the GLVAR or Realist. It gets more complicated, guys, so I just don't even choose anything here. And then add me. So typically, you're going to be the selling agent. If you're filling this out for someone else, I suggest you don't do that. Now, if you're purchasing something and you are actually the selling agent and you're doing you are the buyer, you can actually choose both. But in this case, we're going to choose selling agent. And I always use the wizard. And then you're going to hit create. Now, just because there's fields doesn't mean you need to fill them out. Now, this side over here is the address information, not the address they're buying, but the client's address. And over here is the property information. So the property that they're buying. Now, if you know this ahead of time, what I suggest is you put the MLS number here, as it will pull all the information and it'll make it much easier overall. But in most cases, when you are representing a buyer, you're not going to know what actual property they're buying. Now, will you know some of this information over here? Sometimes. It doesn't mean you have to just because it's in the wizard. You can always come back to this if you need to, but a lot of times you're not even going to come back here and fill out this information. Transaction dates. Now, this is more geared to the selling side or the listing side. So you could put the listing date here, the expiration of the listing, and if they received an offer. If you're working with a buyer, this has nothing to do with you, and in most cases, you're going to leave it blank at that step. Now, so here, this is where you're going to put the contacts for the transaction. By default, it brings in Life Realty District. And then because I said that I'm the selling agent, it brings in my information. Now, what I suggest you always do here is you add the contacts. So the buyer information, and if there's more than one buyer, you're going to need to add those separately. Now, you can add an existing contact. So if you already have another transaction, and let's say they're buying another property, you can do that. You can add yourself. I'm already in there. Or you can add contact from Google, which I never use. But I usually use create new transaction contract or contact, sorry. Now here is where we need to be specific. So who is it? And there's a huge list here. Now, if you're working with a renter, you're going to choose tenant, seller, and so on. Usually you're going to use buyer or seller. You're not going to be using much of these. Now, if a trustee is involved, you could be doing a buyer lawyer. But in most cases, for this actual demo, we're talking about buyers. So I'm going to choose buyer here. Now, you're going to have to create each contact separately. So since I'm using myself here, so, and those red asterisks over here means it's required. Now, it's not required to put an email address here, guys, but if you're sending this via DocuSign, you need the email address. Now, if it's the legal name is different than the contact name, you can put there. Preferred signature, to be honest with you, I put their legal name up here. I don't just put, you know, Joe instead of Joseph. And then I leave these things blank because they can fill them out themselves. And this is default to add to address book, and I leave that defaulted as well. Now, if you have more than one buyer, they're going to have to sign separately. And when I say more than one buyer, I mean, are they going to be on the home? If I am the only person that's buying that home, we would be done. But if it's a married couple, or if it's someone's partner, or it's a mother and son, you need to make sure that if they're going to be part of the loan, part of the documentation on that deed, we need to add them here. And it's going to be the same form here. If it's a second buyer, you would put that here. And their email here, typically it's going to be different. And then you would save it once again. So now you have all the contacts. This is where I suggest you add the contacts. The reason I said you can do it later, guys, but it's going to make all the contracts simpler if you add all the contacts related to that transaction here. It will default in on those forms. Now, don't stress. You can always come back to this, or you can add more contacts later to the transaction. But at this point, I would say try to be as clear as possible. Now, since we're talking about the duties owed and the BBRA, we are going to add those forms here. These are forms that are going to be part of the transaction. Now, if you have a wet signature on a duties owed or BBRA, you can scan those and add them here. But typically, you're going to hit add, and you're going to go to residential forms, and you're going to find the one that you're looking for. Now, these are in alphabetical order, but you can also search up here. and it's going to bring up what you're looking for. Now, we're doing the selling side. Again, this is quite confusing because it sounds like you're on the selling side, so it must be the listing agent. But the listing side is here. The selling side is here for the buyer. And I know that sounds really confusing. It confused me for like the longest time. So you're going to select the form that you want here. And now up here, you will see that actually it's added that form to your basket. Now you can go out here, or because we won't know that we're actually going to do the BBRA, you can actually look it up here. And you can search for BBRA, or you can search for Buyer Brokerage Representation, and you're going to want to use the one that says new. Once you select it here, you will see that now 2 forms are in your basket. Then you're going to want to hit add. Now at this point, you want to actually change these forms. Right now they're vanilla. They have nothing inside them. So we're going to go into the duties owed. And it's going to take you to the form. Now, because we've added contacts to this transaction, it's going to default in. So I set myself as the agent, so it's defaulting. You're going to put your license number here. And then the clients that you put in are going to default here. Now, if it's the buyer, you're selecting that. The broker is the actual person that is signing it, not a lessee realty, not life. And if I can spell his name right, it's going to be the broker that signs it. And almost 100% of the time, it's going to be Sean. So if that changes, of course, everybody will know. And then the company's going to default at Life Realty. Are there additional licenses involved in this transaction? Now, this we need to pay attention to. If you're new, or if you need help on a transaction, you're going to want to say yes. So if I'm helping you, then my license is also going to be involved in that transaction. Not if we're walking through the forms, but if I'm actually going through transaction desk, if I'm helping you through this process from a license standpoint, we're going to click yes, and we will need to do a supplemental form here. In most cases, we're going to say no. Once you're seasoned, it's always going to be no, you're going to be doing this on your own. Again, if you want me to walk you through this, does not mean that I'm involved. But if we're doing the transaction together, we will hit yes, and we'll fill out this other form. Now here, it's going to actually outline what your duties are, licensees. Now, this actually says that your Nevada real estate license shall make sure that we are not deceitful, fraudulent, or dishonest. These are our clear responsibilities. And then our duties to our client. Now, this is why we should go into this very confident, guys. This is all about what we're supposed to be doing for our clients. This is not to be scary. This is about telling them that when you sign this, it is my responsibility to take care of you. This legally says that I have to be honest. I have to take this relationship serious, and that the brokerage is behind me. So at that point, that's all you need to make sure is filled out. That's how simple this is. So at this point, you can just hit save and exit. Now we go into the Buyer Brokerage Representation Agreement. Okay, so this is a little bit longer. It's 2 pages instead of 1. Now, if we are going to be the exclusive agent, this is going to be 90% of the time. You're going to want to select this. Now, if the client says, I want this agreement to be non-exclusive, this means that they're probably working with more than one agent. So just be mindful, if they say, I cannot do an exclusive agreement, let's ask the questions. Why? Are you already signed to an exclusive agreement, or are you in another non-exclusive agreement? This makes sure that you are actually the person that you are representing them on a single person-to-person basis. Now, here is our next one, properties. What type of property are we selling? Most of the time, it's going to be residential. You're not going to be dealing with commercial. You could be doing a new home if it's new construction or custom built. It's possible you could be doing vacant land or an investment. Now, this is important because if it's an investment, things are handled differently than just a residential purchase. So the only one that you're probably not going to use in any case, unless you're a commercial agent, is this box. And the vast majority of time is going to be residential. Now, here, the applicable cities needs to be filled out, but you don't have to worry so much about having the exact city that they're purchasing it. Unless they say, I will not purchase in Las Vegas, I have to purchase in Henderson. You can be specific here, but I just like to be generic. So any areas around Las Vegas, but if you want to name every city, you absolutely can. That is completely up to you. Now, if you want to add other descriptions, you can, but you don't have to. You don't have to think, okay, they're only looking for multiple family. They're only looking for this. If the client says they want to be that specific, you can absolutely put that in. But in most cases, they're not going to need that. Now, if this agreement relates to a specific property, then you want to absolutely put that in. In most cases, it's going to be left blank. Now, the length of agreement. This can kind of freak people out sometimes if they think they're going to get locked in. This agreement begins on the date that is signed by the buyer and the broker and automatically ends. Now, what I typically do is I put 90 days. Because by the time they look for a home, it goes through escrow and all that. Usually you're doing that with 90 days. If there's a contingency, like if they are selling their home first, or if they say they want to start looking and it might be a year out, just make sure you explain that you are marking this a year out because it could take that long. It doesn't mean they can't cancel. They can cancel this agreement. So just make sure that when you're communicating the form, doesn't mean you're locked in. You're just setting an example of how long you think that the agreement should be for. And like I said, I usually go by 90 days, and I'll push it out to the very end of the month. So I would not stress about this unless your client is stressing about it. The buyer brokerage compensation. This is where we have to be specific. Now we want to check here and make sure that you're putting in your percentage of what you want to be compensated for. Most of you are doing 3%. Now, if you have an agreement that the client's already talked to you about and they say, I will only pay 1.5%, I will only accept 2%, you're going to have to make a decision that will you represent that client at that percentage? Now, some clients know their stuff. I know that Raquel worked with someone that said they'll only pay 1%. So you're going to have to make the decision, is it worth that compensation? If you're new to the business, let's have that discussion. It does take time to do this, but in a lot of cases, let's get through the transaction because it's a learning possibility. We won't want to get hung up on it too much, but we actually also don't want to put zero here. You absolutely need to be compensated for your time. Now, if they don't want a percentage, you can select this one and put exactly the amount that you are going to be compensated. Typically, it's going to be this. Now, this one we need to be cautious about. Now, this is your broker fee. If you're agreeing that you're going to pay your broker fee, then this one doesn't need to be selected. But if you're expecting your client to absorb that price, you need to check that button. Put in the fee you're charging. I only put in what the broker fee is. I know some agents will put it lower, like 500, like they'll only cover part of the broker fee, or some will go up to 1,500 or 2,000 and say that you need to cover that as part of the broker fee. Just keep in mind that we don't obviously want to be greedy here, but really you're saying, are you going to be out this amount, taking it out of your commission or not? And then we want to explain what this fee is. The majority of the time, I will put in here that they're going to pay the broker fee. If you've had that discussion ahead of time, you of course can adjust that altogether. Now, once you put if you put an agreement to a purchase on a property and it falls through or they back out, you can say that you still have to pay my broker fee. If they actually cancel the agreement, you still have a broker fee. So you can ask that if they back out of a purchase agreement that they still need to pay the broker fee. You can put a date here. So what I typically do is I say, if you back out of a purchase agreement and you just want to cancel, my broker fee still has to be paid and you have 3 days to pay it. This is going to depend on those discussions. In the vast majority of cases, if they're writing a purchase agreement with you, they're not going to back up. They're going to move forward with this. Just keep in mind that this is what it means. Now, any of the buyer's names that you put in your contacts, it's going to default here. So if there's numerous ones, it's actually going to put it in this line. That's why I say set the contacts, because a lot of this will be defaulted. Now, this goes into how are we collecting the broker fee, disclosures. Disclosure basically says that the buyer understands that depending on the circumstances, there's going to be disclosures they need to sign. So, like the lead-based paint disclosure. If a house is a certain age old, it's going to have lead paint. So it's basically just saying there are going to be potential disclosures that they may need to sign. This should not freak out anybody. You will have a discussion about every disclosure that is represented. This is just supposed to say there's going to be disclosures, just depending on the circumstances. Now, then it goes into the broker's effort. The broker will exercise good faith. We will locate and present suitable properties. Now, if a client is pre-approved for, let's say, a $600,000 mortgage, and they want to go see $2 million homes, that is not really a suitable property. We are understanding that we need to make an offer. We need to tell them that these are suitable properties. Now, can you show them those properties? Absolutely. But I would actually tell them that there's a chance that they're not going to be able to afford it. But we will help them prepare, negotiate, and try to secure a contract to the purchase of that property. So the broker behind us, the one that their license is sitting behind ours that protects us, they're agreeing that we are going to perform those services. And then it goes into your representation. The buyer agrees to work exclusively with our broker, not with any other broker. They're signing an exclusive agreement. So we're saying the buyer agrees to act in good faith. That if they go to another broker, if they start down this road, they are actually agreeing here that they will not do that. And then for the best experience, buyers encouraged to be accompanied by a broker or a buyer's first visit to a property. Now, the broker does not need to go to the property. We are representing the broker. We need to go to the properties. We are the agent. But the main thing is that we need to make sure we're there and that this is exclusive. and there is a buyer broker representation. Equal housing just basically says that we need to abide by all local and state federal laws prohibiting us from actually being sure, like we won't hold back properties because of religious, community building. We are not going to actually hold back a property because of disabilities. We need to make sure we facilitate any homes that buyer is interested. Now, wire transfer warning. We are expecting wire transfers throughout this process. We do not accept checks. In a lot of cases, we need to actually have electronic transfer of funds. So this is just warning them that this is going to be needed. And it's going to go into Nevada law applies, and that we need to follow the state of Nevada, all laws and regulations. And that the buyer warrants the buyer has the legal capacity and full power and authority to enter into this representation. Now, if we know that, or if we wonder if someone is not at their full capacity to sign these agreements, we need to question it. Of course, we're not going to know in most cases, but this is saying that you are authorizing this because that you are completely able to have full power and authority. Every once in a while, you will get power of attorney, and escrow will be able to help you with that, where actually someone will need to come in and actually be the power of attorney over a representation. But Annie from Landmark is great about this. Always reach out if you have questions. And of course, you can reach out to Aaron or I if that is one of the cases. Now, cancellation, and I draw people to this because they get freaked out by agreements. Either party may cancel this agreement. That means the agent can cancel or the buyer. Effective upon written notice. So they can email you, they can send you a text, but we need to make sure that we have written notice that the cancellation is happening. Now, this is where we can put people's mind at ease. We can say that no matter what, if they are not set into an agreement, a purchase agreement, they can cancel at any time. Then these buyers are going to default in here. And the designated licensee is going to be the agent. And then you're going to need to fill out your license number, your telephone number, your email address. This is a part of the agreement that you are signing. So it needs to be your actual personal email address that comes up here. So the DocuSign comes to you and then you can sign. Now here, you're actually going to put Life Realty as the company. It will be Sean as the broker name. You'll put the broker's license number here. You actually can get this from Element under support. And this is where the broker is going to sign through DocuSign. And you're going to want to fill out the address, the city, the state, and zip. That will be the address of a lessee. And here you're going to have the email for Sean. The license number, the email, the telephone number is going to be an Element under the support section. Now, this form is done. So if you go back to the top, you can hit save and exit. Now your two forms that you're actually sending are here. You've already pre-populated everything, so it looks good. And then you can click next. This I just leave blank. It always pops up as a back cover. I've never touched this before in my life. Then you're going to want to go over here because now your wizard is done. Right here it says step 5 out of 5. And you're going to go to sign me. If it allows me to click. Not give me the dictionary. Seriously, am I doing something funky? Am I doing like an Apple thing? I don't think so. You are. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for the helpful person over here. See, it says sign. Now, okay, thank you so much. Okay. So signings. Now, this is what the signing name is. So I name this specific to the forms I'm doing. So in this case, I'm going to put the name of the people that are actually signing. And I like to be very specific because you're going to have tons of signings in here. So I name it duties owed and BBRA. Now you're going to have like residential purchase agreement or RPA. You're going to have disclosures. So this allows me to be organized. It's completely up to you on how you want to do it. It will take you here and you're going to add the documents that you need signed. Now, a lot of times you're going to have a lot of documents in here, but because we're just starting this transaction, it only has 2. So I always start with the duties owed because it's 1 page and it's a little bit easier. And then the buyer brokerage. And over here, you can see the order that has placed them in. And then you can close. Now over here, you have your form. Now it's going to default in with what you put. Here's the agent, here is Sean, it's a buyer. It's going to put the buyer information here. So you can go through and you can just verify that everything that you put in is accurate. And then you're going to go next up here. Oh, I apologize. You go to signers up here. Now you're going to add participants. Now, if you added all of them into the transaction like we did, you're going to add from transaction. You can add from your contacts. You can add a new one if you didn't put anything in your contacts. You can add yourself. Typically, if you filled out the contact section, you're going to add from transaction. So here, we're going to want Sean. We're going to want the selling agent. We're going to want the buyers in this case. And then select. Now, if anything's wrong with that signer, it's going to come up with this little red exclamation point. In those cases, you can click in and you see that there's no email address. Now here, you can obviously put Sean's. Since it's missing and I haven't memorized his email, I'm going to put mine. And then you can update the transaction contact here. I'm not going to click this because this is my login and I don't want to update it with my email address. Then you hit save. Then the red mark is gone. Now this is important, guys. Set signing order. It defaults as off, but please turn this on. Sometimes people will say, oh, just send it to everybody at once. When Sean is involved or the broker is involved, please turn this on. If Sean gets it and these other people haven't signed, he will reject it. Everybody has to sign, and he signs last. Now, you wouldn't think this is a big deal, but if he rejects it, you're starting all over again, creating the forms and sending it to your buyers. This can freak people out because they already signed. Why am I signing again? So make sure Sean is last. Now you can drag this down to the last, or you can number them. Usually I put myself first as a signing agent, and then I put the buyers next. Or if both of these are the buyers, you can change this to 2. That way it goes to both of them at once. But I send it to myself first, almost like a test. Like, okay, it came through, I sign it, and then my buyers see that there's a signature. So I feel like they put that kind of puts them at ease. But again, you can do this however you want. I just stress, make sure Sean is last. If you don't turn this on, it will go to him. And depending on when he looks at his email, he could have gotten it first and he will reject it. Then you hit next. And now it's sent. And it's going to go out automatically. It expires 1 month from now at midnight. If you want to set a reminder for everybody on it, you can set a certain amount of days to remind them. I usually set a reminder for 1 day at 9 a.m. Most people are going to sign this right away. But if they're busy or something like that, I'd like to set a reminder so the next day they're reminded that they haven't signed it yet. This is not a big deal. It's just set so sometimes people get, overwhelmed with things and they don't sign it. And this kind of just reminds them. And then real quick over here, I just want to point out, so because I marked the 2 buyers as 2, it actually connected them here and put a 3 under Sean. So it's smart enough to say, I can send these 2 at once. It goes to the selling agent, goes to my 2 buyers, and then it goes to Sean. Then as soon as you hit send, it's going to all parties. And it's going to show here the participants and where it is in the process. So you have 4 participants and it's sent. Now you sign, it's going to show 1 out of 4. Once the buyer signed, it will say 3 out of 4. And once Sean is done, it will say 4 out of 4. But you can see right here that here are the participants if you hover over it. So in this case, it's me, Brian, and Sean. Now, if you go back to your transactions, and you go back to your dashboard, in your auto sign, it will actually say, here's where it is, the duties owed in BBRA, and that it's sent. And then you'll see here, like here's one of my transactions, it's completed. That means that everybody signed. If it's rejected, it will be red and it'll say rejected. And then if you click on your transaction, it's going to show you all the forms associated with that transaction. This will get pretty long as you go through the transaction. Now here under documents, you can upload documents you want to send to your client. Now sometimes if a client is kind of sensitive about filling this out, I have like a document that says cancellation notice. And it's a little certificate that says that basically they can cancel at any time. It says the same exact thing that the BBRA says in one little certificate that makes it seem like it's something different, but it gives them power. Now, if you have something like that, you can actually add that to the document and put it through the signing. So you sign it and the client can sign it. Again, it puts someone at ease. It means the same exact thing as the BBRA. It doesn't even supersede it. At the bottom, it says, look at the BBRA. It is just something to make you feel all warm and fuzzy that you can back out before a purchase agreement. it just gives them a little piece of paper that kind of puts you at ease. Then all your transactions, like I said, would be right here, organized beautifully. And trust me, you will go back to these, especially at first. Like, I will forget what I put on my first BBRA. So I'll go to an old transaction and be like, okay, how did I fill it out? Until I got used to it. So that's why it's really nice to have all of this information in here. So that is part one of the transaction desk. Is there any questions or comments at this point?
Question.
Yes, Art.
Transaction coordinator's fees don't appear anywhere, right?
Transaction coordinator fees is not in the agreement, no.
And that should be something the agent pays.
Typically, it's the agent pays it because you've decided to use a transaction coordinator. That's not the buyer's fault. Okay, that you want to do that. That's saving you time,
right,
and effort. So that's typically going to come out of your commission. But yes, it's not defined in those two transactions. No. Sorry, Raquel.
And then I know you mentioned templates before.
Yes.
That's probably not part of our plan, but after this call.
Okay. You mean like templates that you can send to the client?
Like, so you know how like you have to, when you have a new client, do the BBRA duties or and like fill out the fill-ins?
Yes.
That are always the same?
Yeah.
Is there a way that you could save that and just like use that form and transfer over to a client, your new client, or not?
You can. Okay, so let's go back to my dash. I think it's on my dashboard. I have done that, Raquel. So, and I know there's someplace here. Yes, so if you go to forms right here on the left-hand side, and you go into like the residential forms that we were in, see where it says number 1 right here? That means I have a saved document. So I've actually gone into this addendum and I've saved that document already once. So you can actually use this on a transaction. You can say, add this to a transaction. So you can select it here and actually move it to your transaction. So if we go back, so you'll see I have that one. And then I have the BBRA saved, like with all my information. And so it'll actually be filled out here and you can add it to your transaction. So even, I mean, I don't do it a lot, but I do have ones that are pre-filled out.
Yeah.
The reason I don't use them a lot is when you pull out those forms and you click in the fields, if you typed them in once, you'll see it like right beneath it and you'll just click on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I first started, I filled these out and I'm like, I'm gonna use them all the time, and I don't because it's just the information in there. But yeah, when you're new, I definitely suggest you do this. It'll save you some time. So you don't have to remember, oh, Sean's brokerage number, I look up every time. So you're absolutely right. Fill out that information ahead of time. But yeah, this can definitely save you time. So under forms over here, if you're using the same transactions, go into here, pre-fill them out, and it'll actually show it and just save it there. And also, if you want that template of the email I send with like what the duties owed is and what the BBRA is, I keep it like under 3 sentences. I say, this is what it means. This is what this means. And I give it a warm fuzzy, like this makes sure I'm your team. You know, this makes sure that I'm taking care of you. So it feels like really nice, but I have a template text and an email that I send to that. Okay. So I'll send that and I go, I'm about to send you these, and then they'll get the DocuSign. Yeah. So if you guys want those templates, I can really easily send them to you. And that way you don't have to think about it. I probably should add them into BUB as just a template you could choose. So I'll add them to both. I'm working on the templates. It's gonna come. If you guys want template emails, please let me know. I'll be happy to create them. I actually already have templates in here, so you're on the first one.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you send a lot, guys, there's no reason to type it more than once. Just type it, you can type it once, and then you can actually copy and paste it. If you really like how it is, we'll set up a template for you. I can actually show you how to do that in Bub, or you can use mine. I made mine public, but feel free to do it for yourself as well. And maybe we'll do that as a different training. During follow-up boss, maybe we'll work on templates. Because I always forget that's in follow-up boss, and that's a good thing. That's a good tool to have. Any other questions, guys?
When it comes to like the cancellation of the broker fee, when is that due? It's just if they cancel the BBRA or if you cancel
If
in the purchase agreement. I think you said both, but just want clarification.
it's not when they cancel the BBRA, it's when they cancel the purchase agreement that they go into. So if they've written a purchase agreement, that locks the BBRA. Okay, that says that you cannot cancel in writing at this point. We have a purchase agreement out there. Let me sit fast so you can hear me. So once they write a purchase agreement, the BBRA becomes locked, like you're in agreement. If they decide to back out, especially during due diligence, because you're starting that escrow process, and due diligence is usually 10 days. If they back out, you still have to pay a broker fee in a lot of cases. So this tells them that if they cancel that purchase agreement, they're obligated to pay your broker fee. So if you're being charged and they're going back on their word or they're canceling, then you will be recovering that cost. And usually I give them 3 days. It's not going to happen a lot. Once they enter escrow, if it falls out, then it's not on you. You're not going to be charged a broker fee. That's just part of the game of real estate. Things fall out. But I just want you guys to be protected in the long run, that you're not out $795 unnecessarily. Okay. And again, they don't have to stress about that. It's just in the off chance that they're stepping away and we're still done a lot of work. And it's only fair. Yeah. Anybody else have questions? These are really great. Again, part 1, I know you guys see a lot of forms over here, and we're going to cover disclosures, and we're going to cover things that I forgot, that I had to go back and ask for. And again, that feels very awkward when they've already bought the house and you can't close the transaction because they didn't sign a disclosure. So I don't want you to have to go through that and have to backpedal. So we'll be going into a lot of these forms, not all of them, but the ones you're going to use the most. So right after this, guys, we're going to start success floors. So please hang around, go to that link and element, and then we're going to do the kickoff for a success floor. And again, you don't have to stay for 3 hours, guys. Just join if you want to, or if you want to log out from the Zoom, feel free. Just let me know if you actually make an appointment during these 3 hours, because I want to spin that wheel and get you a couple cash prizes. I just want to let you know I appreciate all of you for joining, and hopefully I see you guys in success floor.
Thanks, Trina. Thank you, Trina. Have a good day.